Hey guys, let's talk about the allure of the shiny new tech. So, something I keep preaching to everybody, when you're learning how to code and you're getting into the whole, let's say the web stack, for example, but it applies to any specialization in programming, whether you go the .NET route and all the different things you can do there, whether you go the Python route or the AI route, etc., etc., etc. Now, the web stack is my recommendation for people new to the whole game because there's just so much opportunity out there. The web is used, of course, for web. It's used for small business, big business. It's used for web technology is now being used for Windows desktop application development. It's also used for mobile development through frameworks like PhoneGap and React Native, etc. One of the traps that noobs get into, and I've been there with software development, and I've been most recently there with camera technology. Now, what am I talking about? The tech trap, or the shiny tech, new tech trap. There we go. The shiny new tech trap. That's what I'm calling it. As beginners, you hear about this new technology is so great, that technology is so great, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can get overwhelmed and caught up with all this. Chasing the dragon, as I like to say. What is chasing the dragon? It's chasing an illusion of perfection. An illusion of perfection. I've been doing that with my camera stuff here. I got like this $10,000 camera. Definitely shoots better, but, you know, I was chasing the dragon a little bit there. Buying all kinds of fancy lenses, $800 for that lens, $1,000 for this lens, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing with microphones. This is not super expensive, you know, $1,000 microphone. I got another microphone, $500. I got another microphone, you know, you get the ideas. Tracing that perfection through the technology. Just like young developers will chase perfection in their application development, looking for the better language or the better framework. Now, don't get me wrong, there are frameworks that are more mature, better than other frameworks given the application that you want to build. So if you're building an AI-based system, you're not going to want to do that with PHP. You could. People have done machine learning with PHP. I wouldn't do it. No, you do Python because that's where all the action is. That's where the market share is. That's where it's mature. On the other hand, if you're doing web app development, though you could do with Python Django, and some very successful apps have been created with Python Django, no question. YouTube. I don't know if they use Django, but it's Python based. I would go PHP because I think in terms of the web stack, in terms of web application development, PHP is king, in my opinion. That all said, blanket statement, these days all the modern technologies, whether it be PHP Laravel, Python Django, Java Spring, C#.NET, even Ruby. Of course, JavaScript Node, the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They're all good. You can find examples of great apps having been produced with all of these technologies. No question. That said, in terms of market share, and something you have to consider when you're looking at any technology is market share. Let's assume you want to, you want to get a job, you want to make money at this game, or even if you're a business owner. One of the worst things that a business owner can do is to choose a technology stack that's rare, that very few people use, even if that technology can offer some sort of performance enhancement over what more popular frameworks that are out there. You see, number one, most of the advantage that you're going to see in some specialized framework or tech is probably incremental at best these days. And number two, the worst thing you can have is some technology that you've developed, a web app, a website, whatever, based on some rare technology where it's going to be very hard to find competent developers to keep updating your technology. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen. So when you're choosing a tech, both from the point of view of a business owner and from the point of view of somebody who's looking to get work, you have to look at the market forces, market share. That's one of the reasons I keep harping on PHP for web app development, because it's just so pervasive, it's so popular. not necessarily the best overall, but it's technically speaking, but in terms of market share, it's king. Anyhow, going back to the subject at hand, sometimes I go off on my little tangents. Remember, when you're first starting out anything new, the reflex, the habit, especially of obsessive compulsive people such as myself, and a lot of developers might be, I would guess, because you got to go into that kind of detail. One of the traps you get into is looking for that perfect tech, chasing the dragon, as they say. The dragon is an illusion. There's no such thing. No such thing. So, and you'll find that any of the prominent frameworks and languages out there today, I reiterate, any of these languages or frameworks, they're going to produce good work. They can produce good work. Really, what depends on whether the app is good or not is up to you. It's not so much the technology that you use. And by the way, same with the camera. This is a message I've mentioned before. I got this, well, in Canadian dollars, about $10,000. In US dollars, when you add the lens and the other things I had to buy with it, you're looking at 10,000 US. And at the end of the day, I was still messing up. I was still putting out, some videos I looked like the Hulk. I was all green. Other videos I looked like a Smurf. I was blue. Sometimes it looked like I was 250 years old when I'm only 365 years old. Even though I had this very high-end technology, because my understanding of the foundations, the fundamentals, cinematography of exposure, etc., was poor, I was still doing a crappy job, right? Now that I understand how to expose the image better, I understand how the equipment works, I understand that this particular camera's limitation. By the way, you're going to see that in programming as well. Yes, in some areas, Python is better than PHP. In other areas, PHP is better than Python, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pick your language. Pick your framework. Again, what you're going to find is that, in general, all these frameworks and languages have pros and cons, and everything looks greener on the other side of the fence until you get there, right? So you may be a PHP program and you look at Node, you go, wow, Node handles X, Y, and Z really well compared to PHP. Boy, I got to go to Node. So you go to Node, and then you find out that PHP did a bunch of things much more easily than Node did. But because you were looking at Node from the outside, you just assumed that it did what PHP did just as well or better. So you see what I'm saying with this, right? It's all kind of evens out in the end, especially nowadays. And so going back to my camera example here, now that I understand how to film properly, better anyway, and I know how to expose properly, I can pull out pretty good images with almost any camera, as long as you know the camera's limitations and what it can do well and not do well. And that's the bottom line. So there you go. I hope this lesson hits home. I've repeated this before, yes. Why? Because it's important. Remember, don't be too concerned about the languages or frameworks in general, because it's more about understanding the foundations of software development, programming, and system design, and managing clients and working with people. That's much more important, because once you have that, you can switch from one technology to the next fairly easily. That being said, yes, there are certain areas where certain frameworks or languages shine. Yes, I'm doing AI, I'm going to Python. I'm doing web stack for small, medium-sized business. Most of the time, server-side programming, I'm going to PHP or Node, depending. Anyhow, that's it. I hope you find this useful. Bye-bye.